Hello everybody, and thank you for watching this presentation of advanced metal shaders. I preferred adding this because some new parameters appear in these shaders, and I thought that it was a good idea to explain what they did in detail. Now, this is the plan of the presentation. During the first 10 minutes, I just show an overview of what's different and the key parameters of these shaders. Then I'll focus on two kinds of metals. First, rough metals, and then polished metals. In the rough metals, I'll explain how to shape your highlights with the new parameters, and I'll also explain how to work with flat objects, which are a very specific case of metal rendering. And then I'll show you how to set up a simple thing just like that with different types of props, and how to adjust all the parameters. I'll go on with an explanation of what's important for polished metals, which are the metals who are polished enough to reflect their environment. And I'll end with how to eventually, because there are not so many things to be done, eventually adjust your settings when you work with other types of lights than Daz3d defaults, such as Uber Environment or Age of Armor new lights. And that's all. So let's begin the presentation now. Okay, I have set up this scene because I want to work on practical example and to show directly on this example how it works and what is important. I have a few props: spheres, a sword, a sci-fi prop. I have only 4 infinite distance lights, nothing more as light. And I have already set up a camera, okay? I can make a pre-render, render settings, slow, small, to go fast, okay? And now I make this render. This is my initial point. I want to explain you what's important in this shader in terms of new parameters, and I'd like you to understand why they are important. So I just select a surface and apply one of the presets, and I select another surface, apply one of the other presets, and maybe why not this one, okay? And now if I make a new render, you will see that the spheres have much more metallic aspect. Alright, these are only the presets. These are the base materials, which include all the parameters you can work on to really customize your metals. What's new in the surface? In the surface, I've included many parameters which will allow you to really take into account every aspect of light and metal interaction. That's it. Okay, you keep many general settings that you already know. You keep your ambient, okay, you keep your diffuse, you keep your opacity, smoothing, okay, UV map, you keep all of that. But what's different is that I have included, for instance, in bump, the possibility to have a separate tile in order to include a kind of bump which will be independent of the surface. I think it's not useful to work with bump tiles and new bump maps because you already have all these features in displacement and in normal mapping. So what is important to understand is that metal have 3 families of important parameters to be rendered. 3 more families than usually. First, you have to take into account the supra-millimetric surface finish. What is the supra-millimetric surface finish? It's all the defects which dimensions is above 1, let's say around or above 1 millimeter. This is a very important setting, and this is rendered directly by your render. It is taken into account directly by your render, and this you can tweak in displacement and normal mapping. You have a second family, which is sub-millimetric everything below the millimetric default, below the millimetric default, and it's the small roughness of materials. For this one, I have included in the specular a blend model. Generally, it is not the blend model which is included. This is a very standard model. But adding the blend model, which will help you to, will allow you to have this additional parameter in the specular, which usually does not exist, and which will spread more or less your highlights around, let's say, their initial spot size. And this will give you a more or less rough effect. I'm going to show you, I want first to present you the main add-ons and then to show you in practice how they work. But I want you first to have an overview of them. Okay, so this parameter is for, let's say, rough metals. And so you have the supra-millimetric defects, you have the sub-millimetric defects, okay? And the last important thing is your reflections. Why? Because when metals are not rough, they tend to act like mirrors, all right? What's difficult in rendering softwares is that, in general, the surrounding environment of object is poor. Because why? You place your camera, you place your props, you place some props behind, but there is nothing in front of them to be reflected, to be imaged. So that's why in reflections, you generally have reflection maps, fake environments that surround your object, okay? And when your environment is rich enough, people tend to only reflect by ray tracing this environment, but this requires an environment. And either a real environment, or you can find product at Daz3d which will fake you this environment, okay? So I wanted to have the possibility to mix these reflections. I wanted to have the possibility to be allowed to have a pretty poor environment and yet to reflect the object around me. So you have in this material the possibility first to set it more reflective, just to set it more reflective, okay? This will override the general Daz3d material and force the reflection. And you can also increase ray trace contribution, okay? Here you have two maps. The one you really need is this reflection map, and this one is actually because when I increase ray trace contribution, I want to decrease my yes, that's it. I want to decrease my environment in order not to over reflect things. So this map here is dedicated to be finally subtracted with this map here, so that when I increase ray trace contribution, with this will decrease the environment mapping reflections. And now, what's really different from Daz3d material is that generally you have one reflection map, or you can have a model only with ray trace. But this time you can choose your ray trace contribution in global reflection, and you can set the whole thing more reflective. Take care that all these parameters can go far above their physical limits, okay? It was to allow you to play more with them in some, let's say, low light scenes or things like that, but in no case you have to put everything at a maximum, otherwise it will be just too much about physics, okay? And here you have the settings for your reflections. You can also, you have a map of the reflection strength, so that you can say this part of the object is not reflective and this part is reflecting, okay? And you have here you have your settings for the ray, the traced contribution, okay? You can go in this subfolder to have everything related only to your rays, or you have the whole thing here. So this is very important because polished metal are imaging, but we have to take into consideration the fact that we don't always have an environment. What I've decided to do, maybe I'll comment that later on, I'll just say no. What I've decided to do is to have blurred reflection maps, because otherwise if you apply a reflection map, you got a really crisp environment represented on your metals, and which does not correspond at all to what you have in your head or around it. By blurring these maps, you have the effect of having something around, but it is not too much imaging. For people who want to be really imaging, I've finally included 3 or 4 crisp maps to have a real image on the spheres. So I've mentioned this difference for supramillimetric defects, okay? This difference for submillimetric defects, all right? And this difference for polished metals, which are imaging. What do I want to mention then is that the general tile of the material has been divided in several parts. There is a tiling which will be common to ambient, diffuse, opacity, and reflection strength, okay, and specular too. Everything which is related to color of the patterns on that. And you have separate tiles and independent tiles for bump, in order for you to play with bumps for displacement related to material. Okay, I can add this. Okay, I can add this displacement, for instance. This one is empty because there is a lot of information already in there. And you can have, okay, and this texture related displacement strength is related to the defects here. So the tile of this one is the general tiling, okay? And I think that's all for the overview of it. Now let's go in details to see how to play really with these settings and to have really metals the way you want them to look like. Alright, I'm just adding something right now. It's when I created my advanced shaders, initially they were just the shader bases. And then when I made my promo images, I realized that it was very interesting to be able to keep the maps of a prop or a figure, and then to add the additional inputs that you can have with the my metals shaders. So for instance, here I have a scene with 4 robots which are really well textured, and I wouldn't feel like applying this and losing the initial preset of diffuse maps, for instance. So what I'm going to do is I have only 4 lights, 4 infinite lights for lighting. Okay, it is not a very evolved lighting. So I can make a first render. They are really beautiful. They are already a metallic aspect, is essentially due to the texture which presents the defects of metallic textures. But we can, for instance, take all of them. How I'm going to do this? I can select all my cambots and go in surfaces and select all of my cambots, okay, and now apply for everybody the shadow base. This is this thumb, which will allow you to transform, okay, your props into something having a much more metallic look. And I'm not sure that I have saved my previous image so that we can compare. And the advantage of using this one is that you won't lose your diffuse, your ambient, and your bump maps. Okay, I wait till the end of the render. I close, and I'm going to undo everything and render how it was without applying the metal shadow base, okay? the render is faster, and if we compare the two last renders, 8 and 9, you see that the it's slow. It's very different. I'm gonna make a toggle, okay? And here you have something with a more metallic look than here, which is a very let's say how low highlight metals, and this is a strong highlight metals. We can adjust the parameters of the highlights, for instance, by just using presets. We can go, for instance, to a pretty lower highlights, I think, and with more spread on the highlights. Okay. Oh, I'm not sure I have re-included my shadow. No, I had not re-included it. So I'm going to this one. I have a small problem with my control key. No, the highlights are bigger. Maybe I should reduce the size of the renders because I'm about it. It might be slow if I want to compare the images. Okay, let's have a change at that. 500 and 1 to go fast. Okay, the rest should be okay. Okay, this one is much faster. So you have, for instance, this kind of rough spread, okay, and you can go for something very much larger. I hope it has been applied. Let's have a look at the specular gloss spread. Okay, spread is very large. So now on your render, okay, and now this is a much more large highlight, and you can go, this is an extreme setting, okay, for really small shiny dots, and you can of course reach all the states. For instance, I'm going to use just this one, and I want to change my let's say so it's in specular. I want to have something, okay, more large. I'm going to try this. I reduce automatically specular strength because when increasing both glossiness and isotropic spread, then you inject some kind of energy in the specular. Okay, you can go for cold colors, for instance. You can go this way, or you can go in color presets, and you will have presets of cold materials. Okay, this one, it becomes pretty cold. And you can go for presets of warm materials. This applies to the base, diffuse, ambient, and so on. And this applies to the reflection, ray tracing, and things like that. And now you have a very warmer robot. Okay, and you can say, okay, this one is really too dark. So you can go back to the rough metals and take something like that. It eventually, still in specular, okay. The limit I fix is 70%. Above 70, it's gonna be more focused, and below 70, it's gonna be more spread. And for this one, the limit I set is 0.1. Above 0.1, it's going to spread very fast, and below it's going to focus. So now, when you play here, you're focusing your highlight. When you play here, you're spreading your highlights, and on the contrary, here you're focusing, but in a different way for both. Okay, so that allows you to shape more, to shape more your spread. So here I'm going to spread a lot. I'm going to reduce my specular because I'm increasing my size, so I'm increasing my energy. And now the body is less dark, but maybe you can find it still a little bit too dark, but the highlights are pretty okay. So in this case, you can increase your ambient or your ambient color, that's the way you want, and increase a little bit also your diffuse and your diffuse color. Okay, and the map would be more visible. Okay, and now it's clearer. And this way, with playing with diffuse, ambient, and specular, you can really shape your colors and your, let's say, your highlights. Okay, the two last, we can also play with them. This one can be purely map-based reflection. I'm gonna apply this on the legs too, and I remember there is a body too. Where's the body too? It must be this one. Okay, render and render, and now it's becoming really metallic, and it's losing a part of its diffuse, because in this preset the diffuse component is pretty low, but we can counter that. Okay. Where is my diffuse? Okay, I can still increase my diffuse strength. The aspect will be less metallic probably, but you will begin to see the color again, the colors. Sorry. Okay, and because polished metals have generally no patterns on them. For this one, we can choose, for instance, so these are, okay, the presets which are purely map-based. All these one are, all the six one are mixed and maps and rays, and this is 100% ray traced. But I have mentioned already that in order to be 100% ray traced, you have to be in an environment. So I can show you. For instance, what's happening when not in an environment. Take this one, and the body too, and apply this setting with strong highlights and reflecting. I'm going to mix. I need to have an environment, otherwise you don't see the reflections, and that's a problem, because if you're ray traced and you have nothing to reflect on, it's maybe a problem. So I am in the right orientation to see the reflection of it. Okay, I'm just going to have a rapid look like that. Okay, now on this robot you see the reflection of this one. Okay, because you have become ray traced, and you can if you think there is too much highlight, you can reduce the highlights. And this is not obvious. I shouldn't have stopped the renders to compare, but you see the principle. But since there is nothing to render around, it's a problem. One important thing that I wanted to show you is this really great product by Dimension Theory. Okay, I'm making other people promotion, by the way, and it is a great product to fake environments, and it's in light, shader, and poses. It's my own organization. You'll find it under Scenes, Dimension Theory, RefMap resource. This is also merchant resource, and you can use it in any product you want. Let's say we want to take this ref dome. Okay, here you're not happy because you're seeing an environment which not corresponds to your scene. But if you go in your scene in the ref dome and you have a look at this, I'm not sure now, it's the parameters. I'm not sure. It's in the surface. Okay, if you're looking for phantom. Phantom means that the rays will be traced coming from the environment, but you won't see the environment. Now if we have a look at this robot, okay, which interests us, and we make a render, then on the robots an environment will be reflected, not the other robots. It's the full environment. I'm going to remove the other robots. Go away, go away, go away. Okay, and check that it is purely reflective. I have to go back to my own product. Okay, and I have to go in the reflection, no, not reflection, with mirror metals. I'm going to take this one with strong highlights here, 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 and 100% retraced probably. Body, I'm going in the reflection. I'm going even to set in more reflected. Okay, ray trace contribution is 100%. And now I'm going to render. And now you see these patterns on the robots. It's your environment, and since it is an HDRI environment, it gives you so beautiful results. This is really a great product. And well, I think that's all that I wanted to say, is that with this you can apply your map, okay, to any prop you have and you want to turn into metal, and then you can browse the presets that are included. It generally works fine. If you want, you can also increase ambient or diffuse in order to see better your maps, but generally it's just sufficient, except when you're beginning to be strongly ray tracing, because I had generally to reduce the diffuse contribution in order to have something more imaging, more acting like a mirror. Okay, and well, it works with any prop which is based on Daz default materials, so almost any props. That's all for this part concerning how to use this shader applier. And I hope that now I will see many props turned into metals. Okay, for this I'm just gonna browse the possibilities you have here in the subfolders. So rotated preset, I've already spoken about that. Okay, it's the same presets rotating the other way around. Now I'm gonna take the same base from for everybody. I'm gonna take my first base. Okay, first, and first base. Okay, so that in the beginning we have the exact same metallic spheres. Okay, these are the exact same ones. All right, just difference because of camera position, small difference. Now you can say, okay, these are rough metals. They have a low, let's say, polished reflecting component, and they tend to spread. Highlights. So I'm going to apply, let's say this one and this one is very different. So what does it change in practice? It changes in specular the glossiness and the isotropic spread around the initial glossiness. Let's go back in specular for the other one, you know. What I wanted to say about isotropic spread is that it is very important between 0 and 0.1. And it varies much more differently above 0.1, okay, much more slower. Now, if I render these metals, you see they are absolutely not the same anymore, okay. This one, for instance, has very strong and small highlights. Why is there small highlights? It's because my isotropic spread more around initial spot is very low. Now I can increase this value, for instance, to 0.1 and re-render my scene. And you see that there are much stronger highlights. And here an important tip. You see, it is overglow. There's overglow. So you may want to reduce this glow. So what you're going to do, you may decrease your specular strength and then re-render. And this is still very glowy. Actually, what you have to know is that a part of the energy of the reflection is sent somehow in the specular glow. So you have not only, this is just the most difficult part of the material. The most important thing you have to understand regarding rough materials is that if you want to decrease this glow, you can also go in reflection map and decrease the strength on this map one. Okay, this is the UV reflection strength on map 1. You decrease it, and then when you re-render, wow, this is there's much less highlights. It's because of the part of the reflection transferred to the specular. And then, for instance, you can increase your specular once again. Okay, and this way you can shape your highlights, or you can choose one of the other presets. Is this the max spread you can reach? Okay, and if you render, it is very, very large spread. It's too large. It's the maximum that you can reach, and generally you won't want this one. You will want something more medium. Okay, and re-render, and you have something much more medium. And now if you want to I don't know, maybe decrease the spot size, you go back in specular, and okay, this is 70%, you decrease this. The result of the highlight is very shape dependent. It's very dependent on three things: the place light reach the object, and the curvature at this place. Maybe it's time to have a look at the sword. Okay, I'm gonna take the sword and take all the materials of the sword and apply the shader. Okay, and is it convenient for this? Yeah, maybe the other way around. With, I don't know. Yeah, let's say this thing, and I'm going to, for these materials, take this spread of reflection and then render it. So here you have curvature enough to have highlights. Here it's flat, so you don't have much highlights. You see, highlights are depend a lot on curvature. If you look at the flat area of your sword, okay, it is highlighted only where there is curvature. And this is logical, and this will be the same for every flat object that you will meet. Why? Because infinite lights are flat lights. They have no intensity variation in space. Okay, so you send something which has no intensity variation. If you send it on a flat object, there is absolutely no reason for which there should be an intensity variation of the light which will be reflected on your object. You see, you send something flat on something flat, you receive necessarily something flat. Okay, so for this I have added some tips for flat object. Okay, the problem is that you can have a light only if you have somewhere light variation. For this, okay, you can add, for instance, one spotlight. Create new spotlight in perspective view. Okay, I check that my spotlight is watching my flat area. I'm just gonna have a look at now what it's doing, and it's sending much. It's increasing a little bit more than the effects. Maybe I can frame more my spotlights. Okay, with a slow spread angle to have just this thing here, and re-render. And now you have your metallic effect because this is darker and this is lighter. It is more obvious on planes. Maybe I should have put on plane. And either you introduce this irregularity with a light, or you can increase the displacements on your object in order to have small, very small highlights effect, which will give you the impression of a metal. Because this is, we are honest, this is 3D, these are not real metals. What will make of these shaders a metal is the way your brain will interpret the image it receives, okay? That's just the way your brain interprets it. And your brain is trained to recognize metals to their reflective and highlights properties. So for instance, I can add this kind of displacement maps, and just on this flat part here, okay, and in surfaces, I'm going to increase the value of my displacement, okay, to have something strong, and render it again. And now you have all these little shiny dots, which will give you the impression, which will give your brain the impression that there is something metallic behind that. Okay, this is just a matter of brain analysis. Okay, so for object presenting curvatures, it is pretty easy. For flat object, it is the most difficult part. Okay, this is why also you don't find a lot of metal texture on the internet, because images are flat, and you see it's not easy to make the brain believe that you have a metal. Okay, so that's what I wanted to say regarding flat objects, is that you have to introduce some irregularities. So we were in the rough metal part, okay, reflections for rough metals. Try never mix this mirror metals or polished metals with this. They are not meant to go together. Why? Only because you can't really have a metal at the same time rough and polished, okay, and the same time in the same place. So avoid mixing them. I'm going to set up this thing with only the whole thing with only rough metal to show you how easy it is finally. So I select my sci-fi prop, and I want it to be I don't know, maybe this way. I'm going in the surfaces. I want to make sure I select all of them, but not the glass. Okay, not the glass parts. The glass parts have no reason to be metallic. Okay, set up one preset of material. Maybe one preset only for everybody is not enough. Going for this one to select. I don't know. I'm just trying like that. It's a real live setting, you know. For this word, I'm going to select another type of guard and grip, and for different spheres, I don't know. Maybe this one, which is clear coated, and this one, which is large spot of rusts, dark version, strong version. Let's call that strong version, and this one I haven't taken right now. Okay, so these are my basic settings, and now I'm going to set up everybody with one and only one of the rough presets. So I select everything and go in rough metals. The more, let's say, standard, I think, is this one or this one. So I'm gonna select the first one. It's maybe the one I prefer. Do I have a camera somewhere? Yes, I'm gonna render with this camera and have a look at how it looks like. Okay, this is only, remember, this is only a 4 light settings. Oh no, I've added my spot. Okay, I'm gonna remove my spotlights. All right, and re-render. Okay, this is my light preset. Why do I have the impression that this is metallic? It's because of the really small, tiny highlights on them. So maybe I found this one is too dark. This one could be okay, and this one has no strong highlight enough. So I'm gonna just to show you rapidly how it works. Okay, I want bigger highlights. So first I decrease my glossiness, okay, and then I put it around just below 1, and I'm going to render just this part here to see if it's okay, if it's what I'm looking for. Okay, I want to cover more. I can still decrease it and increase it. Okay, and even more. Decrease, increase. Okay, this I prefer this kind of highlight. Remember, decrease, increase to grow, and they work together. They are brothers. Okay, brothers dials. Okay, and if I find maybe a warmer color, I can choose a warmer color here, or I can go in one of the color presets, which will apply color presets. This is warm reflections, so I can choose warm reflections colors, and this time the reflected color, the color will be much warmer. Okay, this is for the first one. What was the second one? What did it look like? Okay, maybe I like it this way, or maybe I want to change the map which is on it. So I have, oh, where is it? Okay, I have a family of reflection maps preset, and here you see this little dark area. It's I've missed it. This little dark area. Let's go on. Okay, it's this tower here, or maybe this one. Okay, you can change the type of reflection on your map. So you set of reflection map. So you take your surface and say, okay, I want which is the funny one? I had a funny one. I can't find it anymore. Red and orange environment. And now if I re-render it, this will move on some kind of red and orange reflections. You see here, this is the same material. I've just changed the surrounding map, and maybe a cold interior environment, which is really cold. Okay, and you can also, and you can choose many maps. You can remove map if you want to. Okay, and you have no map at all. And now this is just a little bit too much, because the presence of map tend to reduce the global reflection. So then if you think it is too much, then you go in reflection and say, no, this is too much. I lower my global reflection. And now, okay, this is better. Okay, and I don't want these little dots here. These two little dots, I don't like them. So I'm going to decrease highlight size and decrease this parameter to keep approximately the same size for the two of them. Okay, so I'm going to decrease highlight size this way and spread it a little bit more, but then I'll have to reduce my specular strength. And okay, I don't have these little dots, but I have approximately the same size of highlights, and the highlight coming from the first infinite light is now covering with the highlight coming from the second infinite light. Okay, that's what I wanted for this one. Now for the third one. Okay, I can keep it this way. And for the third, I'd like to remove these two strong things. I'm gonna make a cold sword, okay? Just build a cold sword, okay? Take my sword, take everything, and go in something which is pretty neutral in the beginning. This one is really neutral. It's the most neutral material I have. So I take this one, and if I make a primary render, okay, this is neutral, there is strong highlights, and this is maybe too neutral. So I'm going to go back to my perspective view and frame it a little bit more. I'm going to add some defects. I'm going to have some smooth defects here, and discrete things. Which one will I choose? this one, but not too strong, but not too strong. This one is not too strong. Okay, let's just have a little render of it. Okay, this was maybe really neutral material. What can I add? Oh, it is pretty okay. If I can also now go to a warm or cold. I said a cold material. So now that I have approximately my basic settings, I want a cold base and a cold reflection. And if I re-render, my metal becomes cold. Okay. And I can have a warm base and a warm reflection. Re-render. This metal becomes very warm. Okay, and you have more neutral settings. Platinum. Let's say platinum base. And now platinum base is much more going back to gray. Alright, keep it this way. And now let's work on the big prop here. So the big prop here, let's have a look at the render of it. What's wrong, what's right, what do you like, what don't you like? I would say, well, I pretty like it this way, but we can do more things with it. We can, for instance, add some damage on the whole surface. So once again, we're gonna take a displacement map, scratches. Yeah, why not testing this one? Okay, have a look at a small place and see what it does. It's not strong enough, obviously, so we're going to increase the strength of this displacement. Oh, my surface, reselect my surface, go in surface, this displacement, hull displacement. Oh yes, it is not strong enough. Okay, let's try by dichotomy. Maybe try this one. Okay, now you have defects on it, but you feel the scale of the defect is really not well adapted to what you have. So maybe a 4x scale would be better in terms of rendering. And now this is better, but maybe this is too strong. So 100% scale. I'm gonna have a look at the global material. Okay. And I would like to increase the highlights, maybe just by applying one of the presets. So this is a rough metal, and I'm going to have a look at, for instance, this kind of strong highlights. It may be fun with the displacement map added to see, you know, these little shiny dots. Okay, so globally it looks like that, and if you feel it is too dark, because I am under the impression that it's a little bit too dark, what you can do is go in the surface and adjust, as usually when a material is too dark, just increase to diffuse. Okay, and have a rapid look at it. With a stronger diffuse, it appears now much more clear, and you can have a really other impression by using why does it always go back so much? I don't know. Rough metal, it's already down. I wanted to correct the seat, because I think the seat is not bumpy, displaced enough. Okay, I'm gonna take this one for the seat, and this I can also add a normal map on the seats with strong normal variations. And okay, now I'm just gonna re-render the final scene. okay? And this gives you different impressions of metals that you can, rough metals that you can customize very fast. So we could test and show for hours. So what you got to remember is go in specular and play with these two parameters, or just use the presets if you don't feel comfortable. If you have too much light in your highlights, then you can decrease specular strength, and if you still have too much light, then it comes from reflection, and you have to reduce this parameter. This is all you have to know for rough materials. No rough metals. Now we have to go in polished metals. Okay, polished metals will reflect their environment, and as I told before, if you have no environment, you're in big troubles. Now what's going to happen if I apply one of these presets this way? It's gonna be bad, because first I've applied the rough metal presets, so I have to come back to my initial presets and then apply the polished metal materials preset. So I'm going, everybody's got the same preset, okay? Oh, the glass, not the glass, please, 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 not the glass. Where is it? Glass, it's here, okay, remove it. And now I apply this thing, okay. And now we are going in mirror metal reflections. So you have something, you have a few metals. Here it's with the first ones here are mapped reflection only, and the last ones are ray mixed reflections for this part, and ray only, let's say. There's still a bit of an environment map, but almost ray only reflections. Okay, and here you have a better look at what it's doing. So maybe we can apply the first preset, okay, and just have a little render, and now you see you have metals faking your environment, and here your environment is a city environment. You see this preset is pretty dark with strong highlights. You have another preset which is much let's say spread highlights and much more environment reflective. You can keep the same preset and just change a reflection map for a nature reflection map, something which will be in the nature, and okay, this will strongly impact your results. Where is my sword? I've forgotten my sword. No, that's visible on the sword. Okay, I'll have a look at this later on. Or you can go for, I don't know, a crisp interior. Okay, so this is an interior scene. You just, this is very imaging. This is too much imaging, but some people may want to really imaging maps. And this one is the same, but blurred. And this one will give you the impression that you have a surrounding environment, but this is not clear what surrounding environment you have, okay? And I prefer the blurred environment maps rather than the sorry, I begin to be tired, rather than the I don't know what I was saying. Okay, blurred, I prefer blurred rather than crisp, because it just gives you the right impression you need to have something around a metallic object. So for polished metals, you may want to change your reflection maps. You can do that for rough metals too. I'm going to come back to my basic environment map city, okay, and show you a bit more with reflection mirror. So this time on these ones, the map is medium, okay, for instance, and well, you switched materials like that. What thing you have to know is that the closer you are, the less the impression of having a map is less and less important. You see here, I don't change the settings, yet when I render, I feel that my map is less present. It's less obvious that you have a map. So it depends also if you are far or close from your props. Okay, for the ones, oh yes, cancel. For the ones who want to mix map and ray trace, I'm not sure my environment is rich enough to have ray tracing. I'm gonna try anyway. So select everybody, okay, select everybody there, come on, and in the interceptor, select everybody and remove the, I hope I have removed them. Remove the glass of the interceptor, that's it. So which one do I prefer? I like this one just because of the strong highlights. Okay, so once again you have another kind of polished metal. Okay, but now you can do more things. Well, more things is that we see here the reflected props, the sphere are reflecting against each other, and the sword is reflecting, or the spheres are reflecting here on the hull. It's maybe not obvious on this image. Maybe I'm going to re-render something bigger so that we see better, because it's not visible on preview. Okay, here we are going to see better what is happening. Okay, we see better. Here you have some ray tracing, which will allow you to reflect your real and not only fake environment on your props. And you still have, it is mixed with the mapped reflection, so you still have, you see a little bit here, your environment map reflection, and yet you also have your ray tracing. I think it's a feature it's a feature I have personally never found on Daz3d, the fact of mixing clearly ray tracing and environment maps. Okay, so now you can go to a fully ray trace preset. So this one is completely a ray trace, and while it's rendering, you see now that it is much more imaging. Yet we are, I feel, it's a feeling, okay, we are the impression that something's lacking. There's a problem. So the three last presets, you will use them only if you clearly have enough, let's say, enough environment to be reflected. Here you don't have the presence of the environment map to help the brain believe that there is something around the scene. So if I come back to something where there is a mix of ray trace and environment, I don't know, for instance this one, okay, and re-render it, you're still imaging. Okay, you're still making images of what is really around you. You have low highlights. I think that's it. Yeah, this is my highlight weak presets. You have low highlights, but you know, you're less annoyed by the impression that there is nothing surrounding your objects. And okay, so that's why you have several presets depending on the maps of the strength of your maps and the strength of your highlights. And my favorite is definitely this one. The highlights large, and you see there's less the feeling that there's a lack of environment. So when you don't have a rich environment, either go for purely map-based reflection or a mix of map and ray tracing. Okay, that you have there. And when you manage to have enough environment and enough things around your object, then you can go for a purely ray trace. Well, no, here I've just set up the same scene, but this time I've pretty mixed, changed the material, mixed them, add a few normals and displacements. And this gives us with the 4 light settings, because I want to speak about other light settings since materials are so much dependent to light. With this 4 light settings, you know, it's it's not overglowing. It's you can of course customize them the way I showed you before, but you see, it's pretty okay. Maybe this one is a bit too strong, but then just have to reduce the specular strength and maybe the reflection map contribution to the highlight. But otherwise, you see, it's okay. Now there are other kinds of lights now that are become more and more usual. For instance, lights with an urban environment and an infinite distance light. So you can find such settings. Maybe light 9 is strong. Hope I've loaded it in the thing. Yes, twice. Okay, so these are my 4 infinite lights. I'm hiding them, and now I'm using only some things with a distance light and another environment, which is a surrounding sphere, sending lights from any direction in space. Now, if with these new lights I'm making a render, okay, well, this one is pretty okay. The light comes from that. That's why here I'm shadowing my sphere. What's happening is that sometimes in this kind of environment the light is too strong. Here the light is clearly too strong and the highlights become too strong. So in order to work it better in such environments, you may have to the ambient contribution has on the material has necessarily augmented the global diffuse contribution because of the other environment around them. So the presets will be different. I had not thought of that. So we are going to make a small render, 500, and correct what's wrong with this other environment. So you see here the distance light is generally pretty powerful. So here you just overglow. Alright, so we are going to reduce this overglow. I'm going to move this sphere so that it's out of the shadow, and I'm going to adjust these materials, these shaders for not rotate, please, grab, yes, got it. And now you see the infinite light. I'm gonna turn it a little bit this way. Okay, so it's better for my camera. No, okay, no, we clearly see that here we overglow, and this is also better for the general lighting and general reflection. So we have to, for this one, for instance, for this one, for instance, I'm going to reduce my ambient strength and my diffuse one, because much more light is globally projected around, and I'm going to decrease this too. This is the part in order to decrease the part of the reflection going in the specular, and decrease a little bit that and spread a little bit more around. It's just small tunings, you know, maybe stronger for this one. And now I'm coming back to my initial state, and okay, this is much better. This is much better. You may want to increase the spread of it because generally you have several lights, which naturally increases the size of the highlights. Okay, increase the size and remove a bit of reflection from there. Re-render. Okay, I have the size of the reflection that I want and the power that I want. And here you see you overglow and you're too small too, or maybe you want to keep small, to keep the dot small, but not to overglow. So go in reflection, and okay, it is already pretty low. I'm going to still lower that, and I'm going to lower the specular, and I want to keep the same size, so I have to make opposite contributions. This one and this one going this way. Okay, just have to try. Okay, maybe this time the size is almost kept, but this time there is no specular strength enough. I'm going to re-render this. you know, these are small adjustments. I prefer spending time showing you how it works, because you might be in the same cases of figures, so know what's wrong, what's right in this image. With either, the difference is that you have a number environment and only one infinite light, so to have highlights it's more complicated, okay? So first you also can rotate the object in the right direction to have more reflections. Highlight will only be due to the infinite light, so it is more complex to render. My light is coming from this direction, so I want to rotate. I can find it, not this one. Going to in parameters, otherwise I'm not going to manage to do it. Not, it was the X rotation, yes. Okay, so my light is coming from there. My camera will be there. Ting, ting, you know, just bouncing, tack. So I have to rotate the X rotation this way to put my camera approximately here and just render. You need to have some bouncing lights. You see, in here I am the perfect axis of the reflected lights, and I see better my reflections. The thing is that when you only points and infinite and spotlights will reflect. So if you want to see highlights, you first don't put just an environment sphere. Always add an infinite light, but it's what most people are doing. And then you may have to rotate your object, or you can add spots to enhance local highlights, okay? And okay, this was for when you work with an environment plus one distant light only, so you have to sometimes to readjust your highlights, because the distant light is often pretty powerful, and overglow and everything, the glow is too much, it's glowing too much. And now you have another new type of light. This default is which work fine with these ones. And you have your, you know, the Age of Armor advanced lights, but there's presets sold by Dimension Theory where all these lights are already mixed. So maybe something which has strong highlights on the images, distant P. Why not distant P? Okay. And in my scene, I check that everything has been replaced by, I'm going to remove this one, an advanced ambient light and an advanced distant light. This orientation is pretty the same. And if I am rendering, well, this is pretty okay. You may, because we have already set things to be not too much reflective, you may be over highlights. And now I think I've shown several times how to reduce globally the highlights with the parameters you have. So finally it's working pretty fine. I'd like, what would I like to do? No, well, no, it's okay. Maybe this one to be less with less light on it, so I can maybe just turn it a little bit, you see, up this way, so that the incident angle of light, you know, it's very dependent to incident angle of light, so now it's less directly lighted, okay? Or I can keep it the same, the same direction, okay? And just change a little bit my camera angle, and now the highlight has another repartition. Okay, so play with light position, light power, material reflections. I think it's almost everything I have to say. Works really fine with Daz default lights, may require some little adjustments in other types of lights. If you feel that here it's not metallic enough because it's not reflective enough, you just, you know, it's pretty easy, take it, go in surfaces. What's important is increase specular strength, and maybe something more focused as lights, okay? And just render and test. It's rendering pretty fast, so now it's much more metallic, you see. okay, and maybe say, oh yes, it's much more metallic, but the surrounding is too dark. So if the surrounding, if outside of the highlight it's too light, you can increase your ambience, you can increase your diffuse, and you can even put some more reflection, both in the highlight and the material, and re-render. And this time, okay, and you see that the surrounding is much more clear. And you can still go on with, okay, I want it more and more clear. This was not enough. Finally, I added some energy everywhere, so I remove a little bit of energy from the highlight, okay, and maybe this time a smaller highlight, bigger, sorry, highlight finally, and then I have to remove. I have to, not necessarily. I prefer remove some of the energy coming from the reflection. Oh yes, not necessarily, but okay. And now the whole material is much lighter and the highlight is much lighter. But you say, oh yes, but maybe this is maybe too large. So remove or just decrease the specular color. Okay, keep sorry, undo. Okay, and you can of course decrease the specular strength, but also decrease just the specular color. This works too. There are combined parameters. No. So play with the new parameters, and if sometimes you're lost, you can come back to these tutorials, which I think will cover the case of figure you have. You can ask me if you need to, and I really hope that you will have a lot of fun with these new metals. And that you will finally manage to make some good metallic rendering, okay. And let's go and finish this presentation with the final render of the scene. And just thanks a lot for watching this presentation. I hope that it will be useful for most of you to take the best of these new shaders. And that's all, everybody, and have a nice and creative day. Bye bye.